Aristotle's Politics, Book 1, represents one of the earliest systematic attempts in Western thought to situate economic activity within a broader range of ethics and political framework. Unlike modern economic analysis, which often treats production, exchange, and accumulation as an autonomous sphere governed by efficiency and incentives, Aristotle approaches economic life as a subordinate function of human flourishing within the city-state. For him, economics cannot be understood apart from politics, ethics, and the natural order of human association. Book One therefore lays the foundational logic of his political philosophy by explaining how humans arise, how households function, how wealth ought to be acquired and used. Aristotle begins by asserting every community exists for some good. Since all human actions aim at what appears beneficial among all communities, the polis or city-state is the highest and most complete because it encompasses all others and exists not merely for survival, but for the sake of the good life. This claim immediately establishes a hierarchy of social organization. The household exists for daily needs, the village for more than daily needs, the polis for the complete realization of human potential. Economic activity is thus embedded from the outset within a technological structure where material provisions is instrumental rather than ultimate. The household or oikos occupies a central place in Book 1 because it is the basic unit from which larger communities grow. Aristotle defines the household as composed of specific relationships: master and slaves, husband and wife, parent and child. Each relationship has its form of rule, each reflects a different expression of rational authority. Household management or oikonomia is therefore not merely technical administration but a moral, practical art concerned with proper use of people and property. This conception differs sharply from later economic models that treat households as consumption units or farms in miniature. For Aristotle, the house is a moral institution oriented towards sustaining life and enabling virtue. A particular controversial element of Book 1 is Aristotle's discussion of slavery. He argues that slavery is natural when it involves individuals who lack rational capability but are capable of apprehending reason in others. Such individuals, he claims, benefit from being ruled by a master, just as body benefits from being guided by a soul. Aristotle distinguishes this natural slavery from slavery imposed by law or conquest, which he acknowledges can be unjust. Although his argument is morally indefensible by modern standards, within Aristotle's frameworks it serves an economic function. Slaves provide the labor necessary for material production, thereby freeing citizens to engage in political deliberation and moral development. Economic productivity in this view depends on stratified social order justified by natural differences. Aristotle then turns to the question of acquisition, introducing one of the most influential distinctions in the history of economic thought: the difference between natural and unnatural wealth getting. Natural acquisition consists of procuring the goods necessary for life, household maintenance, such as food, shelter, and basic tools. Activities like agriculture, herding, hunting, and fishing fall into this category. These forms of acquisitions are limited by nature because human needs themselves are limited. Once sufficiency is achieved, further accumulation serves no genuine purpose. Unnatural acquisition, by contrast, is characterized by the pursuit of wealth without limit. Aristotle associates this with retail trade, speculative exchange, and especially unusury. The defining feature of unnatural acquisition is that money ceases to be a function as a means and becomes an end on itself. This inversion is purposeful for Aristotle, a fundamental moral error. Money originates as a medium of exchange to facilitate the satisfaction of needs, but when it is accumulated for its own sake, it becomes detached from its natural function. The invention of money, Aristotle explains, arises from practical necessity. As communities grow and specialize, barter becomes inefficient and a commonly accepted medium of exchange emerges. Money thus has a legitimate necessary role within the household and police. However, Aristotle sharply criticizes practice that treat money as productive in itself. Usury is condemned most forcefully because it involves money, generating money, a process Aristotle views as unnatural and sterile. Since money is an artificial convention rather than a natural organism, it should not be made to breed. This critique of chrematistics or money making as an art aimed at unlimited accumulation forms the core of Aristotle's economic argument in Book 1. He doesn't oppose trade or exchange per se, but he insists that such activities must remain subordinate to the goal of living well. When individuals pursue profit without regard to moral limits, they undermine the ethical foundation of the polis. Wealth, in Aristotle's view, is valuable only insofar as it supports virtuous activities. Excess accumulation distorts character, encourages greed, and destabilizes social harmony. Aristotle further claims the distinction between possession and use. The mere ownership of property doesn't constitute good household management. What matters is the correct use of property. This idea reinforces his broader philosophical position that virtue lies in proper function rather than quantity. A household head must know how to employ resources in accordance with its purpose, ensuring efficiency without excess economic wisdom. Therefore, it is a practical virtue rather than a technical science. Throughout Book 1, Aristotle resists the separation of economics from moral judgment. He rejects the idea that marked success or monetary gain can serve as independent measures of value. Instead, he evaluates economic practice by the contribution to the stability of the household and the ethical integration of the polis. This stands in sharp contrast to later classical and neoclassical economics, where self interest and accumulation are often treated as neutral or even beneficial forces. The broader implication of Aristotle's argument is that political authority has a legitimate role in regulating economic behavior. Since the polis exists to cultivate virtue, it cannot remain indifferent of how wealth is acquired and used. Economic practices that encourages excess exploitation or moral decay threaten the very purpose of political association. Thus, Book 1 provides an early philosophical justification for embedding economic life within the normative and institutional constraints. In sum, politics, Book 1 represents a vision of economic life that is inseparable from ethical purpose and political structure. Aristotle doesn't offer an economic theory in the modern sense, but he provides foundational framework in which production, exchange, property are evaluated according to their contribution to human flourishing. By distinguishing natural from unnatural acquisition, subordinating wealth to virtue, and grounding economic activity in the household and the polis, Aristotle establishes a mode of economic reasoning that would influence scholasticism, early modern moral philosophy, and even later critics of capitalism.